High in the clouds of the planet Velrana, there was a grand palace made of crystal and light. Birds flew around its tall towers. Floating bridges connected each tower like spider webs in the sky. This world belonged to a proud alien race called the Aelari. Tall, thin beings with long feathered wings who could glide through the air with grace. In the royal palace lived Princess Ellery, daughter of King Tor and Queen Serilan. She was born with beauty and intelligence, but she had something the others did not: a damaged wing. Her right wing was smaller, bent in the wrong way. She could not fly. In a world where flying was everything, Ellery was seen as different. Some whispered that she was cursed. Others said she would never rule. But Ellery was not weak. She read every book in the palace library. She studied stars, maps, machines, and alien cultures. She learned how ships worked and how planets moved. She smiled in front of her people, but deep inside, she felt lonely. At night, she would sit near the high balcony and watch the sky, wondering what was beyond the stars. One day, during a royal meeting, her father spoke loudly before the court. "Ellery will be given to Lord Crail's son as part of a peace deal," King Tor declared. Ellery's heart dropped. Lord Crail's son was cruel. He had laughed at her once, calling her a ground crawler. "But father," Ellery said, "I wish to choose my own future." "You are a princess, not a dreamer," he replied sharply. That night, Ellery made a decision. She would not stay. She would find a place where no one cared about her wing. She would see the galaxy for herself. She wore a long cloak to hide her face and snuck into the ship hangar. She entered a small Star Runner, a fast ship used by royal scouts. She set the coordinates for a random sector and launched into space. For hours she flew across stars, nebulae, and moons. She felt free for the first time, but her joy didn't last. A field of asteroids suddenly surrounded her. Alarms rang. The ship shook. One rock hit the left engine. Another cracked the wing. Ellery fought the controls, but the ship spiraled down toward a small blue planet. Earth. She lost consciousness as the ship crashed into a forest. When Ellery woke up, everything was quiet. Her body ached. Her wing was bruised. Sparks flew from the ship's broken walls. Then she heard a voice. "Whoa! You okay in there?" a deep voice said. She looked up and saw a strange being standing at the broken entrance. He had no wings. His skin was light brown. His eyes were wide with shock. He wore a jacket covered in tools and wires. I do not know this world," Ellery said slowly. "Yeah, I figured." "That's one crazy-looking ship," the man said, kneeling beside her. "I'm Jake Carter. You crash-landed behind my garage." Jake helped her out of the wreckage. He gave her water and led her to a small wooden cabin nearby. It was simple, but warm and safe. She sat near the fire while he brought her strange earth food. "You're not afraid of me?" Ellery asked. "Should I be?" Jake smiled. "You don't look dangerous. You look tired." That made her laugh softly. Over the next few days, Jake helped her check the ship. He wasn't a scientist, but he was good with machines. He fixed farm equipment, cars, and old rockets for fun. "This engine's busted," he said, "but I might have some parts." Ellery watched him work. His hands were rough but careful. He asked questions but never stared at her wing. He treated her like a person, not a problem. They talked every night. Jake told her about Earth, about forests, wars, music, and freedom. She told him about Velrana, about floating cities, and how her people flew like birds. "They must be amazing," Jake said. "Not all," Ellery said. "They do not understand when someone is different." Jake looked at her gently. "Well, I think you're more amazing than any flying bird." Her heart beat faster. For the first time in her life, someone looked at her and didn't see broken wings. But trouble soon came. Earth's local defense radar had picked up her crash. One morning, 2 black jeeps rolled down the hill. Men in suits surrounded the crash site. "Stay inside," Jake warned her. He stepped out to talk to them. Larry watched from the window as the agents asked questions. They wore earpieces and carried strange weapons. Jake pointed to the sky and shrugged, but they didn't leave. Soon they knocked on the cabin door. "We know you're hiding something," one man said. "She's not a threat," Jake said calmly. "She's peaceful. She needs help." "Alien. Contact must be reported. She'll be taken for study." Ilari stood up behind Jake. "I am Princess Ilari of Velrana," she said boldly. "I will not be treated like an experiment." The agents froze. Jake looked at her proudly. "She saved herself. She's not some alien invader. She's someone who wants freedom." The agents backed down, uncertain, maybe afraid of starting a galactic war. They left for now, but the message was clear. Earth was no longer safe for her. Ilari knew it was time to return home, but she didn't want to go alone. That night, she stood by her ship and turned to Jake. "You have helped me more than my own people ever did," she said. "I want you to come with me. To Velrana." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What for?" Ilari stepped closer. "Because I want to show them that strength isn't always in wings. Sometimes it's in the heart. And because I wish to ask something of my parents." Jake looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. "All right, Princess. Let's show them what a human can do." And together they climbed into the repaired ship and launched into the stars. The ship moved smoothly through the stars. Inside, Princess Ilari sat in the pilot's chair while Jake Carter rested beside her. Outside the windows, space stretched forever, quiet, dark, and full of light. Jake had never been this far from Earth. He looked out in wonder. "It's beautiful," he said. "Yes," Ilari replied, "but my home is not as peaceful as this view." She gripped the controls a little tighter. Her hands were shaking. Jake noticed. "Are you nervous?" "Yes, very." "Because you're going home?" Ilari nodded. Her voice was low. "Because I'm bringing you with me." Jake leaned back in his seat. "Well, I'm honored," he said, trying to make her smile. And she did smile, but just for a second. "My father is a strong king. My people value tradition. A human in the royal court, they won't understand." Jake gave a small laugh. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Ilari looked at him. "I want to ask my parents for something impossible, but I believe it is right." Jake didn't ask what it was. Not yet. He only said, "Whatever happens, I've got your back." Ilari's heart felt warm. As the ship entered Velranan space, guards picked it up quickly. They sent warning messages. Ilari responded with her royal code. Shocked voices replied. Within minutes, the ship was flying toward the royal palace high above the clouds. The palace looked just like before, grand, shining, full of airships and soaring creatures. But to Ilari, it felt cold. As they landed, hundreds of nobles, guards, and servants waited outside. Whispers filled the air. "Is it really her?" "She's alive." "What is that creature beside her?" Jake stepped off the ship beside Ilari. He stood tall, even as the crowd stared at him. His boots touched the floating marble platform, and he looked around calmly. He was ready. King Veiltor appeared, tall and dressed in shining silver robes. His great wings folded behind his back. His eyes were sharp and his voice deep. "Ilari," he said, trying to stay calm. "You disappeared. You broke the rules. You left your world behind." Ilari stepped forward. "I had no choice. You tried to give me away to someone who does not respect me." The king narrowed his eyes. You return with a stranger from a lesser world, a human. This is Jake Carter, Alari said proudly. He saved me. He treated me as equal. I brought him here for a reason. Gasps went through the crowd. Jake bowed slightly, his Earth-style greeting simple but respectful. The king raised his hand. The crowd grew silent. Why have you brought him? He asked. What do you want from us? Alari took a deep breath. I want your blessing to marry him. The court exploded in shock. Nobles shouted. Some laughed. Others whispered in anger. Impossible! A human and the royal bloodline? She's mad! The king's voice rose above them all. Silence! He stared at his daughter with fire in his eyes. You ask for shame upon our name. You want to join our noble blood to a wingless outsider? Alari stood firm. Yes, because Jake has more honor than many here. He looked at me and saw a person, not a broken wing. He is brave, honest, and kind. He risked his life to protect me. Queen Serilan stepped forward quietly. Her voice was softer but full of power. Velrana does not forbid love, but this union breaks every custom. Jake finally spoke. I don't know your rules. I don't come from a world of wings, but where I'm from, people are judged by their actions, not their blood. The queen looked at him curiously. The king spoke again. If you wish to earn this right, then your human must pass the trial of winds. The crowd gasped again. No outsider has ever tried it, someone whispered. He will fall, another said. Jake raised an eyebrow. What's the trial of winds? Alari turned to him, eyes full of worry. It's a test, a dangerous one. No wings, no help, only your strength and skill. Jake looked at the king. All right, I'll do it. Alari stepped in front of him. You don't have to. This is my battle. No, Jake said gently. If this is what it takes to stand by your side, I'll face it. That night, they stayed in a royal guest room high above the clouds. Alari could not sleep. She walked to the balcony and looked out at the stars. Jake joined her. You okay? He asked. I'm afraid for you, she whispered. The trial. It's a sky maze over a deep canyon, windstorms, moving platforms, no safety nets. Sounds like fun, Jake joked. She didn't laugh. I don't want to lose you, she said. Jake placed his hand over hers. I won't fall, and even if I do, it'll be for you. Tears touched her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away. You're different from anyone I've ever met. You too, princess, Jake said. The next day, the trial began. A huge crowd gathered. At the edge of the trial plateau, floating stone platforms hovered above a canyon that stretched into darkness. Strong winds howled through the space. Jake stood at the edge, dressed in a light suit. He wore no armor, only ropes, a belt of tools, and his courage. Alari stood beside him. She held his hand for one moment before letting go. Come back to me, she said. Jake nodded, and then he stepped onto the first platform. The trial of winds had begun. The winds howled like wild beasts. Below the floating trial plateau, a deep canyon stretched endlessly into mist. Jake Carter took a deep breath as he stepped onto the first floating stone. The crowd above watched closely. Some were curious. Some laughed. Others expected him to fall in the first minute. He was a human. No wings, no flying skills. Just a man with ropes, gloves, and hope. Princess Alari stood beside her mother, Queen Serilan. Her heart beat fast, her hands clenched tightly. Her father, King Vael Tor, sat on a tall throne made of sky glass. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Jake moved carefully. The first stone rocked under his weight. He knelt down, pulled out a steel hook, and tied a line to his belt. Each platform was far from the next, but he had planned this. He had built machines, climbed broken towers, and walked steel beams in Earth's factories. He could do this. The second jump was harder. The platform shook in the wind. Jake used his hook to catch the edge, pulled himself up, and rolled to safety. The crowd murmured. He made it. Beginner's luck. He won't reach the 10th. There were 30 platforms. Every few, the wind changed speed. Some platforms moved, others flipped. Jake used tools, ropes, and his own body weight. He never rushed. He always checked the wind. By the time he reached the 8th platform, sweat covered his face. His arms ached, his legs shook, but he kept moving. Ilari watched every second. She wanted to cry out, to fly to him, to help, but she could only stand and hope. Jake slipped on the 12th platform. His foot hit moss. He tumbled, but at the last moment, he threw a hook. It caught. He dangled for 5 long seconds before pulling himself back up. The nobles gasped. Queen Serilan whispered to her husband, "He has heart." King Vialtor didn't speak, but a small wrinkle near his eye showed he was thinking. On the 15th platform, storm ones came. They hit like a wall. Jake pressed his body flat and waited. His clothes flapped loudly. A noble whispered, "Now he'll quit." But Jake didn't quit. He waited 5 minutes, then stood again. The wind slowed. He moved forward. Ilari whispered. To herself, "You can do it, please. 20 platforms, then 25. By the time Jake reached the last platform, his rope was nearly torn. His fingers bled, but his eyes were sharp and focused. The final platform was the hardest. It spun, slowly in the air, high above the others. The gap was too wide to jump. Jake stood, studied it, then smiled. He took the last hook from his belt. He wrapped it tight, ran to the edge, and threw it. The hook caught the edge. He jumped. The crowd screamed. He swung across the gap, slammed into the final stone, and held. On then, with a final pull, Jake Carter stood on the last platform of the Trial of Winds. The sky went quiet. Even the birds stopped flying. Then came the cheers. Some loud, some unsure. But the people could not deny it. This human had passed the trial, Ilari cried out with joy. She ran toward the edge, smiling, her heart light. Jake raised one fist in the air. Wind blew through his hair. His chest rose and fell. But he stood tall, proud, and alive. Later, back in the Sky Palace, Jake was treated like a hero. The royal healers wrapped his hands. The servants brought him food. Nobles came to stare at him, not in mockery now, but in wonder. He did it. He's stronger than he looks. Maybe he's not so simple. Ilari sat beside Jake in the healing chamber. You risked everything, she said softly. Why? Jake looked into her eyes. Because you're worth it. She smiled and placed her hand over his. At that moment, Queen Serilan entered the room. You have gained our people's respect, she said to Jake. Even my own. Jake stood slowly, still weak. I didn't do it for your people. I did it for Ilari. The Queen's lips curved slightly. And that is why you succeeded. That evening, the royal court gathered once more. This time, it was not to judge, but to listen. King Vialtor stood again before his people. Jake Carter of Earth has completed the Trial of Winds, he announced. Few have done it, none without wings. He turned to his daughter. Princess Ilari, you say you love this man? I do, she said proudly. And you still wish to marry him? Yes, with all my heart. The king looked at Jake. And you, human, do you swear to protect her, honor her, and never shame her before the skies? I swear it, Jake said. The king raised both hands. Then by the laws of Velrana, you have my permission. The Mao. Crowd gasped again, but this time the sound was not of anger. It was surprise, and maybe respect. Ilari smiled wide. Jake took her hand. Queen Serilan stepped forward and said gently, "Prepare the sky arch. The wedding will be held at dawn." That night, as the stars lit the skies, Ilari and Jake stood on the balcony together. The wind blew softly. Jake looked out. "I never thought I'd be standing in a palace floating above the clouds." Ilari looked at him. "And I never thought I'd meet someone who looked at me and didn't see weakness." He turned to her. "I never saw weakness, only strength." They leaned closer. Her wing brushed his side gently, and under the quiet stars, their foreheads touched. Far below, on the streets of Velrana, the people whispered of change. A human? A broken-winged princess? Maybe this is the beginning of something new. And in the highest tower of the palace, King Vialtor stood alone. He looked out the window at the stars. "The galaxy is changing," he said. "Perhaps we must change with it." The morning sun rose slowly over Velrana's silver skies. Soft clouds moved under the floating palace as music began to play. Trumpets made of crystal echoed through the towers. From every corner of the Sky City, people came to see something never done before in the history of their world: a royal wedding between a human and an Aelari princess. Guards lined the paths. Courtiers wore robes made of golden feathers. Winged dancers flew across the sky in beautiful patterns. Flowers floated gently in the air. The sky arch, a giant structure of light and silver, glowed at the center of the courtyard. Princess Ilari stood behind a silk curtain, dressed in a white gown stitched with fine threads and bright gems. A crown of soft feathers rested on her head. Her damaged wing had been decorated with shining patterns. She did not hide it anymore. Today, she wore it proudly. Her mother, Queen Serilan, stood beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You are brave, my daughter," the queen said. "I did not understand before, but now I see who you truly are." Ilari smiled, a little nervous but filled with happiness. "Thank you, Mother." In another chamber, Jake Carter stood with two royal attendants. He wore a deep blue suit made from light Aelari cloth, with symbols of both Earth and Velrana. His tools and old jacket were gone for now. He looked strange, but noble. "How do I look?" he asked the mirror, touching the collar. One of the attendants chuckled. "You look like someone who is about to change our world." Jake breathed out slowly. "Yeah. Let's hope it's for the better." As the wedding hour arrived, thousands floated near the palace. Hover discs carried guests from across the planet. Velrana's 3 moons moved in perfect alignment, casting a glow over the city. The sky arch was ready. Ilari walked forward first. The crowd went silent. Every eye watched her. Some stared at her wing. Others stared at her strength. Then Jake appeared from the other side. He walked calmly, a little awkwardly, but with pride in his step. They met in the center, under the sky arch. An old priest with silver feathers stepped forward. "Today," he said loudly, "we gather for a union of 2 souls from different worlds. One of royal blood, one of brave heart, both equal in purpose." Jake looked into Ilari's eyes. "You look like a dream," he whispered. "You look like the reason I can breathe," she replied softly. As the priest spoke the ancient words, a voice suddenly shouted from the crowd, "Stop this ceremony!" Everyone turned. A tall Aelari noble with black wings flew down. His name was Lord Varnus, leader of the High Sky Circle, a group that hated change. "This union is against our ways," he said. "A human cannot be royal. This will weaken us. This will shame our future." Many gasped. Some nodded. Others looked unsure. Ilari stepped forward. "Do not speak of shame. You and your circle never saw me as worthy. You judged me from my wing. Jake sees my soul." Jake looked around. He didn't want to start a fight, but he wouldn't back down either. "Where I come from," Jake said, raising his voice, "love is stronger than fear. You fear change. I don't. I faced your trial of winds, not for a throne, not for power, but because I love her." The crowd murmured again. People were listening. Lord Varnus narrowed his eyes. "Then let the people decide. If they cheer, let it happen. If they stay silent, end it." There was silence for a long second. Then, slowly, one person clapped. Then another. Then cheers rose from all sides. Loud, honest, joyful cheers. "Let them marry!" "She chose him. He earned it." Lord Varnus frowned and flew away, defeated. The priest smiled and raised his arms. "The people have spoken. The skies accept this bond." Ilari and Jake turned to each other. "Jake Carter of Earth," the priest said, "do you accept Princess Ilari as your mate and partner, forever under sky and star?" "I do," Jake said clearly. "Princess Ilari of Velrana," he asked, "do you accept Jake Carter as your chosen soul forever beyond wing and blood?" "I do," Ilari said with joy. The priest placed a shining light between their hands. "Then let this flame join you in love." As the flame floated above them, Ilari leaned in. Jake met her halfway. Their lips touched gently. The wind sang. The people cheered. It was done. Later that evening, the palace held a grand celebration. Music filled the air. Sky feasts were held on floating tables. Fireworks painted the skies. Children flew with joy. The people once unsure now smiled. Jake danced awkwardly with Ilari. She laughed and guided him. "You're stepping on my dress," she said. "Sorry," Jake grinned. "We don't float when we dance on Earth." She held him close. "You float now, just in a different way." As the stars rose higher, Ilari and Jake stood on the balcony together. They looked down at their planet, her planet, and up at the galaxy that brought them together. "Do you think they'll truly accept me?" Jake asked. Ilari leaned her head on his shoulder. "Some already do. The rest will learn. They'll see what I saw." "What's that?" "That you are more than enough." Jake smiled, touched her hand, and said, "And you are everything I never knew I needed." They stood in silence, hand in hand, heart to heart, and above them, the 3 moons of Velrana glowed bright. But far away, in the dark edge of the galaxy, a shadow moved. On a secret world, the high sky circle gathered in anger. "The human must not stay," Varnus growled. "He is changing everything." "Then we stop him," they began to plan. And though Jake and Ilari didn't know it yet, their love would soon face a new test, one far more dangerous than any trial of wind. Days passed after the wedding. Velrana was calmer now. The people began to accept the strange new bond between Princess Ilari and Jake Carter. Some still whispered behind closed doors, but most had seen the truth with their own eyes. The human had risked his life. He had passed the trial. He had not come for power, only for love. And Ilari had changed too. She stood taller now. Her damaged wing no longer made her feel small. Together, they were stronger. Jake worked with palace engineers, sharing Earth ideas. He helped design tools that did not need flight. Ilari helped open a new library wing to study alien cultures. For the first time in history, Velrana began speaking with other worlds, starting with Earth. But peace never lasts forever. One night, a strange light appeared over the mountain clouds. Then, an explosion. Guards rushed through the palace. Alarm bells rang. Ilari and Jake woke to the sound of shouting. "What's going on?" Jake asked, grabbing his jacket. A guard burst into their room. "Your Highness, you must come! The sky wall was attacked!" Jake and Alari followed the guard to the upper tower. King Viel-Tor, Queen Serilan, and the royal generals were there already, looking at the battle map. A blinking red dot flashed on the screen. "What is it?" Alari asked. A general replied, "A strike ship, cloaked, unknown model. Someone breached our skies using stolen codes." Jake stared at the data. "This is Earth tech mixed with Alari systems." Alari looked at him. "Who would do that?" Just then, a message played across the screen. It showed Lord Varnus, his black wings spread, his face filled with anger. "Your planet is weak," he said. "You allowed a human to poison our bloodline. Now the High Sky Circle will fix your mistake. Surrender the human, or watch your kingdom fall." The screen turned black. Everyone was silent. The king finally spoke. "They have betrayed us. Varnus has gathered old warships. They want to start a rebellion." Jake stepped forward. "Then let me help you fight." "You are not a warrior," the king said, "but I'm an engineer. I've studied your ships, and I know their weak spots now. Give me a team and I'll stop them." Queen Serilan added, "He has proven his loyalty." The king looked at Alari. "What do you say, daughter?" She stepped beside Jake and said, "I say, we trust him." The king nodded. "Then you have my permission. Take our fastest ship. Stop Varnus before he destroys us all." The next day, Jake and Alari flew out with 5 royal scouts. Their ship, the Windclaw, was light, fast, and armed. Jake worked on the controls while Alari sat beside him, reading coordinates. "They're heading toward the sky beacon," Alari said. "If they take it, all our signals will fall." "Then we stop them there," Jake replied. As the Windclaw neared the edge of Velronan space, dark clouds gathered. The enemy ships were already there, 10 large cruisers, shaped like birds of prey. Jake flew low and fast. The scouts followed in formation. "We'll hit their engines," Jake said. "Cut off their power. Then we talk." The battle began. Lasers fired. Ships danced between lightning storms. One scout was hit but escaped. Jake spun the Windclaw around, dodging a missile. "Nice flying," Alari said, holding on tight. "Learned it in Earth's asteroid rings," he grinned. They flew under the lead cruiser. Jake released EMP bombs, energy pulses that fried circuits. The enemy ship powered down and drifted. Then he opened the comm channel. "Lord Varnus," Jake said, "you've lost your lead ship. Surrender." Varnus appeared on the screen, furious. "You don't belong here. You are a disease to our people." Jake looked calm. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just the mirror showing your fear." Alari stepped forward. "Varnus, your time is over. You speak of purity, but you only spread hate. Let the people choose peace." But Varnus screamed in rage and cut the signal. The enemy ships began charging their weapons again. "We need to end this now," Jake said. "Let's hit the control center." They flew directly toward the central ship. Fire lit up around them. One laser hit their wing. Sparks flew. Alari gritted her teeth. "Almost there," she said. Jake launched 2 torpedoes. They struck the enemy's command tower. It exploded in bright fire. The other ships began to drift. "Their command is gone," a scout said. The rest of the enemy ships turned away. Without orders, they retreated. The battle was over. Back in the palace, the people celebrated. Jake and Alari returned as heroes. The king hugged his daughter for the first time in years. "You saved us," he said. "We saved each other," she replied. Jake stood with them, his clothes torn, face dirty, but proud. Later, the Council of Wings officially declared the High Sky Circle disbanded. Their ships were grounded, their leaders were arrested. Alari was now more than just a princess. She was a symbol of strength, of change. The people began teaching their children that strength came in many forms, in wings, in minds, and in hearts. Jake was named the honorary Star Hand of Velrana, the first human in their history to earn such a title. On their balcony, as the sky turned golden, Jake and Ilari stood together again. "So," Jake said, "what now?" "Now," Ilari replied, "we build a new world. Together." He smiled and took her hand. "With you, I'd go anywhere." She leaned her head against him. "Even without wings?" "Especially without wings." They laughed softly. Above them, the stars watched in silence. And so, the story of a broken-winged princess and a human mechanic became a legend in Velrana's skies. A story not about war or power, but about love, courage, and what it truly means to rise.